1 week season.
Hey, and welcome in, OWS fam. So glad you are with us. We are back in the DFS lab, and tonight it is Showdown. It is Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern when we're recording this, October 7th, and tonight the 4-0 Chiefs hosting the Saints. And we're here to talk about it, build a DraftKings lineup, and to talk through tonight's Showdown slate. I'm your host, Cheeseman, and privilege as always to welcome up the Showdown expert, Xandamere, expert in a lot of things, but Showdown certainly one of them. Xandamere, how was Week 5? How you doing?
Oh man, thanks for having me. I am doing well. Week 5 was okay for me. It was a lot of close, but not quite, unfortunately. But that's life in the tournament streets, especially when you're playing larger field tournaments, right? Like you can get a lot right and still not get to first because it's hard to get to first. But it was a good week. It was a good week for OWS. I feel like our analysis was spot on. We were all over Baltimore, Cincinnati. If you look at the Oracle where we write sort of our final end of week thoughts, I think 3 of our 4 contributors who wrote in the Oracle had Baltimore, Cincinnati as like their top game of the week that you should be building around. And of course, that game went absolutely bananas. We were all over Indy with Joe Flacco, who's like apparently one of our guys here at OWS. We liked him last year on Cleveland, and he's old, but he still chucks. So it was a fun week for our subscribers, right? We had a lot of tournament wins in our Discord channel where people post those, our Binks channel. So I love weeks like that. Obviously I love them more if I win, but if I can't win, it's nice to see our subscribers doing well and having big days. That's fun to see people cheering each other on and taking stuff down.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I thought the analysis was very sharp at 1 week season. You and Hilo in particular on the slate. Your conversation on the leverage that Brandon Ayuk and Josh Jacobs brought, I thought that was really good and really shifted my thoughts over to getting a little more Ayuk in there. He was that close to just a had to have it day. Still a solid day for him though. So, but yeah, great week at 1 week season and so close on so many spots for me as well. So. With that, let's look at this Showdown slate tonight. Back to the single game so we can just focus on this one game, no 2-game slate to worry about. What are your initial thoughts on this Chiefs-Saints game with the Chiefs being favored here by 5.5 and they're at home?
Yeah, so I wrote this up in my article on the game, which is something that's been I've been kind of thinking about for a while. I don't think this is a huge surprise, but I think we need to recognize the Chiefs' Chiefs' team identity has evolved in the last season plus. For a long time, we thought of the Chiefs as this offensive powerhouse, and Patrick Mahomes is putting up like video game numbers for year after year after year. Last year, Patrick Mahomes was quite mediocre. Not bad. He was fine. This year, he posted career worst numbers in basically every quarterback stat last year. Career worst touchdown to interception ratio, career worst yards per attempt. He slipped last year, and this year he slipped further, right? And it's only 4 games, but it's not just 4 games. It's 4 games plus a season. He is not looking as good as he used to, and I don't know why, right? Like clearly, I think his pass catching core has something to do with it. He had like breakout, star Rasheed Rice for 3 of the 4 games this year, and still look kind of eh. But the end of Tyreek Hill, it's obviously a big deal, right? Like, so you can blame the Chiefs organization for not putting, elite talent around him outside of Kelce, who of course is now 38 years old. So the why, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that, but it's fair to say, I think at this point, like I hear so many people in the space say, we should stack Chiefs because oh god, they're gonna blow up at some point. Mahomes, and look at Mahomes, he's 11,000 in this showdown. That's about as expensive as we ever see a quarterback. He's been 10,000 or above in every showdown slate this year. And you can see pricing because DraftKings still does showdown slates even on like Sunday main slate. Like they'll still do small showdown slates for every game, so you can see the showdown pricing. He's been between 10 and 11K every single game, and the question is like, does he deserve to have that salary? Can he still have a good game? Of course, we just saw Joe Flacco have a huge game. Of course, Patrick Mahomes can still have big games, right? But I think we need to recognize the Chiefs' identity as a team has shifted from being like an offensive powerhouse to being a defensive stalwart. And I don't think I'm the first. Like, I don't think this is revolutionary. I'm the first person to say this, but I know that I have stayed on the like, oh, there's still that offensive explosion in there. Like, it's going to pop out at some point. and it will at some point. Like he'll have a good game. He'll have a good game from a DFS perspective. He still can do that, but I think that the brand name has exceeded the production for a while now, and so really the Chiefs have become this elite defensive team that is really hard to score against. Now the Saints, of course, what did they score? 91 points in the first 2 games of the season. I think it was 91. It was 90, just over 90. And then fell on their face the last 2 games. So who are the Saints is a fair question to ask, right? They scored 12 points against Philly. They scored 24 against Atlanta and then gave the game away at the end in week 4. But they slaughtered Carolina. Everyone slaughters Carolina, but they also slaughtered Dallas. So, the question is, who are the Saints, right? And there's probably somewhere in between. I mean, no team scores 40 points a game every game of the season, right? That's insane. But I think they're somewhere in between. They clearly have offensive talent. They clearly have some defensive talent. Like, I think they're a good team. I think this game, if Derek Carr can avoid being a bonehead, which he struggles with at times, if he can be, he doesn't have to be peak Patrick Mahomes. If he can be a competent quarterback, which we know he can, then I think this game is probably closer than Vegas is giving it credit for, because I think the Chiefs, without Rashee Rice, are going to struggle to score. So that's my kind of high-level thought of the game. Now, when you start digging in, when you look at the slate, you look at the pricing, one thing that really jumps out to me is there's sort of an upper mid-tier, and that's like, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, who else is in there? Rasheed, Shaheed, that kind of like 7-8K range. There is really no mid-tier, because then you from what's his name? Kareem Hunt at 70. I'm in the captain slot in this lineup I'm looking at, so I don't know, 7,400, whatever his regular price is. From Kareem Hunt down to the kickers starting at 5K or 5,400 for Harrison Butker, there's this $1,800, or sorry, it's a $2,000 gap where there's really nobody. There's Samaje Perine. That's it. So there's a big gap there in the middle. Then you have, like, at the high end, you've got Mahomes. You've got Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, awesome play, the engine of the Saints offense. He's fantastic, right? Really, but very, very expensive. And at the very low end, there's not a lot of value, right? You've got, like, Noah Gray, who's going to play a good number of snaps. I talk about him in my write-up a fair bit, right? He got a nice contract right before the season started. He saw 4 targets last week after Rashee Rice exited, which is season high. Then you've got, like, all these other guys that you're just sort of throwing darts at, like Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, Jamal Williams, right? The Saints tight ends, Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson. None of those players are exactly confidence inspiring. And so we're kind of left with this weirdly priced slate where it's like, if you want to play Kamara, or even if you want to play Mahomes, you're going to have to find a way to dip into this awkward value territory, because there's just not mid-range stuff to make it work. So I was trying for a while to come up with a roster that I wanted to share on this show, and it was really challenging. It was actually a very hard one to build for, because I really want to use Kamara, but it's really hard to build with Kamara. It's really hard to build with Kamara without having, like, it's very difficult to build a Kamara roster without using 2 sub-kicker value plays. And the sub-kicker value plays are just really uninspiring. And the idea of, like, is it possible 2 of them get there? Of course it is. But it's challenging to think how 2 of them get there. And I also think that Kamara is likely to be one of, if not the highest owned captains. And so that also means, okay, well, I'm building in a way that a lot of people are going to build. Like, if putting in Kamara means that you're playing as captain, means that you're almost certainly playing 2 sub-kicker value plays. There's like so many sub-kicker value plays. Then, like, when you think about the number of thousands of Kamara lineups are going to be in the big tournament, like, you get to see how much overlap you're going to end up with Kamara captain lineups. It's just hard to build uniquely with the Kamara captain lineup in a way that feels good, that feels strong. So I'm going to build a lineup that fades Kamara, which is terrifying because it's really scary to do that, because I think he's an awesome play, but I had a really hard time figuring out how to make this work with players I like across the board and still getting Kamara in there. So, to be clear, I'm not fading Kamara. Like, on the slate, I'm going to have, a lot of Kamara, but I needed to find some way in this one to be different. And so, the way I'm choosing to be different in this roster is to fade our friend Kamara. So I'm going to start with Kareem Hunt at captain.
I love that. Kareem Hunt. All right, yeah, let's get him in there. Obviously, the former Chief, and signing him with the with Pacheco going down. So I like that pick.
Yeah. So let's look at what happened last week, right? It was Kareem Hunt's first week elevated from the practice squad. He's been, as you noted, he's been a Chief. They know him. He only played 40-something% of the snaps, but he had 17 opportunities, including 3 targets. He's a capable pass catcher, right? He's been a 3-down running back in the past. 17 opportunities is strong. At 7,400, I'd be fine with 17 opportunities, but I think that if you were to chart his opportunities, I think it skews to the upside. I think he's more likely to go over 17 than under. Carson Steele fumbled early last game and was basically never heard from again. Samaje Perine got 5 carries, oddly no targets, which is weird, but he's normally thought of as a pass catching back. But it's also encouraging if you want to play Hunt, because it says they're already good with Hunt in pass protection and in passing game. And so I think Hunt's likeliest outcome is, 18 to 20 touches with 3-4 targets. And at 7,400, he's just not priced for that. So I think he's underpriced for his role. And this is the kind of the theme of the roster I'm building is I'm looking for most of the core guys here, guys where I just think they are underpriced for their role.
Yeah, absolutely a winning strategy to find those. Exactly. And he did that on 40% snap share. That is surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, he was getting the ball when he's on the field, and I think that will change too. Again, he's only been on the team a week, or I think about 2 weeks now. But as of last week, he'd been on the team about a week, and so it makes sense he wasn't on the field every play. But I think he probably gets up to 60% snap share this week. Is my guess. So I think that role is going to grow for him. He played well. He ran for 4.9 yards per carry, caught 2 or 3 balls. I think he played well. He could feasibly lose a little bit of goal line work to Steele, because Steele is Steele's a big dude. Right. Steele's a fullback, really. And Steele's 6'1" and I don't even, what does he weigh? I don't remember. He weighs a lot. He's a big, bulky dude. So he could end up being a goal line vulture guy. But I think Kareem Hunt's role is going to be really robust.
Love it. So, all right, so you got him at captain. So where does this take us next?
So I'm going to put in my value play, because this is my favorite value play on the slate. I'm just going to put it in because then, and this is how I like to build when I'm building by hand, is it kind of gives me an idea of how much salary am I playing with, right? If I have a value play I plug that in. There are 2 value plays I like more than the others. And I've built this lineup already, so I know which one fits. But Justin Watson, I think, is a guy, the Chiefs trust him. He's generally not a guy whose targets spike a lot when he gets, when someone's hurt, but he's on the field a lot. He can make some big plays. He can make some big catches. And the Chiefs trust him, and he will have field time, and he will get targets, as opposed to say a Juju Smith-Schuster, who might get field time and no targets, as we've seen multiple times from Juju in his career with the Chiefs. So he's a solid value play, but the one that fits in this lineup that I'm going to use is Noah Gray. Going back to Noah Gray. Again, contract extension in the offseason. They talked about how they wanted to get him more, use him a little more in the offense. He had his season high of targets last week, caught 4 balls. At 2,600, I just think he's not quite priced for how involved he's likely to be in this offense with no Rice. Now, I think he's probably going to be around 4 or 5 targets, right? He's not going to be a 7-8 target guy. But 4 or 5 targets at 2,600 is fine by me, right? If he gets a touchdown, he's awesome. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he scored 8 fantasy points last week with no touchdown. And at 2,600, that's a pretty good shot he ends in the optimal if he gets 8 fantasy points at 2,600.
Without a doubt.
Excuse me. Okay, next play is we are going to go with Travis Kelce.
Randy, giddy up.
So the theory here, Kelce, I think, is the most direct beneficiary of Rice being out. And again, all this is in the article, the game write-up. But Xavier Worthy is priced up to $9,000 as the sort of wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs. But Worthy has yet to see more than 4 targets in a game. He saw 4 targets last week after Rasheed Rice left the game early. His route tree is really limited. It has been really limited. Now, he's the most talented wide receiver they have. He's really fast, right? He's really fast. I think their hope for him is he grows into a kind of Tyreek Hill type where he can be really fast, but more than just a deep threat. But my question is, how much can they really expand his route tree in 1 week? And my guess is probably not a lot. And so my guess is he goes from a 3-4 target guy to a 5-6 target guy. And at 9K, that's tough to swallow. Meanwhile, Travis Kelce had a season. Travis Kelce saw 12 targets in the first 3 games and then 9 targets last week after Rice left. And keep in mind, Rice left really early, right? So it's basically a Riceless game when you're looking at the Chiefs. Now, the narrative out of Kansas City all season has been that they planned to scale back a little bit on Kelce's workload. He's 38 years old now, in order to try and preserve him for the playoffs. Okay, get it. You still got to make the playoffs now. And now without Rashee Rice, it makes sense to me that they would have to lean on Kelce a little bit more as kind of the last man standing of the guys who can be high volume, big play, guys like they trust, guys they'll specifically design plays for. Like if you look at their wide receiver core, it is thin. And so, like, I don't think that Worthy is ready to be that guy yet. I know Juju Smith-Schuster isn't that guy. I think we know Justin Watson isn't that guy. We know Mecole Hardman and Sky Moore aren't that guy. So, Travis Kelce makes sense as the guy to design the offense around for this week. Design it around Hunt and Kelce is how I think they're going to play this out. And he's also, again, he's 8,600, which is a price that, it reflected a somewhat diminished role for Kelce. Kelce is normally a guy we see in the 9s or 10s for most of, his career during Showdown. So I think that you're kind of already getting a discount that accounts for some of the sort of age risk. So now if you look, we've got 9,200 average left.
Yeah, we got some salary to work with here.
Yeah. And so there's a couple directions we can go, right? Like we could feasibly at this point plug in Kamara, but then we have 8,150, which kind of puts us at an awkward spot salary-wise. So I will tell you, there's a couple options I played with here. You could do something like Kamara, Olave, and then like the Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker. I think that's a reasonable way to go. That's totally valid, totally fine. I think you could go, if you want to get Kamara in, you could go Kamara. But like, for example, let's say you go Kamara and then Shaheed. Then you have 8,300. That's a lot to leave on the table. But you could go like Kamara, Shaheed, and Harrison Butker. That's slightly more of a large tournament play. Where I'm going to go here is I'm going to go for the Saints passing game. And the idea here is the story we're sort of telling is that the Chiefs are able to, get this done largely on the ground with Hunt, punching in a touchdown or two, which is why we don't have Mahomes is the same story, by the way. Mahomes from a price perspective, if you put in Mahomes, it's hard to get to, other guys.
Right.
So, it's kind of the same story as Kamara with who you could fit in if you go Mahomes here. But with Hunt at captain, instead of like say Kelce, I don't think we need Mahomes. And that's kind of why I built it the way I did. Is I think that we're hoping that Hunt scores a couple on the ground. Noah Gray and Travis Kelce maybe score one touchdown between them, or maybe not. Maybe they just get yardage and they just get enough to at their prices to pay off. And then the Saints have to play catch up, and they're going pass heavy later in the game. And Kamara obviously catches passes, but he's sort of lower. He's lower upside as a pass catcher. He's not going to do enough in the air to generally most of the time to get you there purely through his passing game role. He needs something on the ground in addition to the passing game role.
A touchdown at least on the ground, if not two, to really pay off the salary.
Yeah, or like, at least 80, 90 yards, you get like 8, 9 points on the ground, right? He's not generally going to be like a 25 points through the air kind of guy. Like Olave and Shaheed can be. So we're going to go the Saints passing attack. And if I'll just plug it in really quickly, you can put in the 3 main guys, which is Carr, Olave, and Shaheed. And that fits very nicely. If we're going smaller field, I'm not super worried about like, I think I need to leave salary on the table. But this gets you the 3 main Saints, the 3 main parts of the Saints passing attack. And so if you look at this roster, if you think about like how it fails, like who it's missing of the main guys, missing Kamara and Mahomes. if Mahomes has a big game, this roster probably isn't working because we have Hunt at captain instead of a Chiefs pass catcher, right? Or Mahomes himself. So, we're hoping that Mahomes doesn't have a big game, but Mahomes doesn't have a history. Mahomes hasn't had a lot of big games lately. Like not just this season, going back, I think at 11K, it's just hard to pay that off. He's not had many games in all of last year or this year that justify an 11K salary or make you feel good about, 11K salary. And then Kamara is the tough one because I think he is an awesome, awesome play, but the salary structure of this week just makes it a little tricky to get him. And in this particular lineup, I'm okay fading him. Now, again, there are different directions you could go, right? Like you could actually go Kamara, Mahomes, and then Saints kicker, or Kamara, Mahomes, Chiefs defense. As some other options. These are different ways that you can kind of build around this lineup. And I kind of want to do a little bit more of this when we do these shows, is talk about not just one lineup, but like sort of
what's the directions.
Yeah. And like, what's the core of the lineup? What's the philosophy behind the lineup? Then how can we finish it? If we take like these 2 or 3 or 4 players as sort of the core, what's the finishing part of the lineup look like?
Like you said, you could do Kamara, Mahomes, and then either of the kickers. That is also a possibility.
Yeah, no, you can't do Kamara, Mahomes, and Butker. Because Butker's 5,500. They've started pricing up, or 5,400. They started pricing up kickers more this year.
Right. Okay. Yep. Okay.
But yeah, you can do Kamara, Mahomes. You can do Kamara, Mahomes, and so let's talk about that really quick. You can do Kamara, Mahomes, Saints kicker, and what this kind of tells us, is a story where the Chiefs win the game fairly handily. And Kamara, the score, basically this tells us the story the Chiefs passing game flops, right? Because Olave doesn't get there, Carr doesn't get there, Shaheed doesn't get there.
Or Saints passing game flops.
Yeah, and Kamara, of course, is the single likeliest Saint to put up a tourney-worthy score because he has ground and air involved in his game, right? And so if the Saints get whomped, Kamara is the likeliest Saint to still put up a decent score. And what this tells us here is, and then they score like maybe they don't get in the end zone, or they get in the end zone once, and it's Kamara who does, and they kick 3 field goals, right? And it's a slightly lower scoring game. They end up scoring field goals and not touchdowns. Or if you switch group over to I don't know how to pronounce that. I guess it's group. I feel like I'm becoming I'm getting a brand name for not knowing how to pronounce people's names. Switch group to Chiefs defense. That's an onslaught. Right? It's a Saints onslaught build, and this follows a lot of the patterns that we normally like in onslaught builds. Right? Obviously 5-1, quarterback, running back, very very likely to appear in onslaught builds. Defense very likely to appear in onslaught builds. So this is a pretty solid onslaught build, and then Kamara, I think, is the likeliest Saint to pay off and to be the one Saint coming back in an onslaught build. So if you want to go around the onslaught, this is the way to go. Like I said, I think the likeliest outcome of this game is the Saints are able to make a fight of it, because I think that I think the spread is giving the Chiefs a little too much credit. So that's kind of how I'm choosing to build, at least for this one. But I think if you want to go Chiefs onslaught, want to bet the Saints look like they did kind of against the Eagles and just struggle to move the ball at all, that's of course another viable approach. So I like kind of doing the core, and this is how I build my hand lineups, is I usually will find like the core I really like. And I really like Hunt Captain, because I just think he's underpriced. I really like, Kelce. I really like Rasheed Shaheed as well. And actually in the article, I go into some numbers kind of comparing Olave and Shaheed and how they've done this season and who's really the wide receiver 1 in that offense. And it's closer than you might think. So those are kind of my core guys, and then I kind of build around it and say, like, what else? Like Gray's my favorite value play. So then I say, like, okay, what else can fit? What are the other options? And I choose what I like best. But if I'm doing, what I will do then is, as I'm going along, I will say, oh, I like this one, and I like that one, and I like that one. And I'll toss those in a smaller tournament, right? Like my single entry lineup will be in some bigger stuff. And then but the other lineups I build along the way that I like, I'll toss those in in a smaller tournament as well, because, it's hard to find the one lineup that works in Showdown, right? Because there's so many different ways things can go. So single entry Showdown's I think it's a tough format. But I like the multi-entry dynamic of Showdown built around a very tight core of players, where it's like, if I'm right, I want to maximize my chances of getting paid. And if I'm wrong, I'm okay just losing,
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely, man. This is great stuff. And we kind of talked about this last week too, and you can check that video out in the top right corner. But just kind of building for potentially a lower scoring game with this core. No Mahomes in there, so you're saying Kelce is a guy who could definitely get there on volume. Gray, if they score one touchdown through the air and Gray ends up catching that touchdown, there you go. And then Hunt, as captain, getting stuff done on the ground. Chiefs, or the Saints in this case, playing catch up. I really like this because the Chiefs, last week 17 points, they put up some really low scoring games, and I could see that being the way this plays out. So as always, this is great stuff, Xandamere.
Yeah, I will note the Chiefs last year scored, I want to say it was 22.2 points per game, which I believe was like 14th. They're right in the middle. They're like 14th in the NFL. So again, I'm not saying Mahomes is terrible now, right? He's not. But I think he's
right.
He's been more of an average quarterback in the last year and a quarter than he's been a really good quarterback, right? We've seen moments. He'll still make some incredible throws.
Oh, yeah.
He will still make some incredible throws. But overall, he's been more of an average quarterback.
Yeah, it's certainly in terms of just stats, production, that kind of thing. He makes the plays when they count. But yeah, this offense is not the same, like you said, video game numbers style offense. So, Xandamere, great stuff with the lineup. I'm excited for tonight. I appreciate, as always, you joining us and giving us your really in-depth thoughts here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. It's fun to be here and do these. And as always, to anyone watching, let us know if this is helping you. Let us know, I feel like we've gotten to the point of the season where I've kind of gone through a lot of sort of the basics of how I think about building showdown lineups and how I attack these slates. And, if you want to throw out maybe more specific questions, maybe we can start to try and pick a question or two that we answer on the next week's show. I don't know. I just kind of put you on the spot to do that. Maybe I should ask that off air, but
no, definitely check, in the comments of the videos or in the Discord, in Showdown. I know that we've been asked before about is our cash lineup still viable? That's maybe something we could at least talk about next week and say, is there still an edge in cash? Because some people I'm sure like to, they have the cash contest. It's volatile anyway, either way. But there was an edge at one point. Is it still there? That's something we could talk about. There's a lot of things. So again, let us know in the comments and let us know on Discord, the 1 week season Discord. You can jump in there. Anyone can jump in there, and it's really a lot of sharp thoughts and a way to reach out and let us know, like you said, ways that we can be helping you guys out in these videos. Awesome, man. Well, I think that'll wrap us up. Xandamere, once again, thanks for being with us, and good luck tonight to everyone. Good luck tonight on tonight's Showdown.
Yeah, good luck to our listeners, to you as well, Cheeseman. I hope you feel like we got to see you take a bink down. Come on, I want to see your.
I know, man. Channel. I was yesterday I was I had some shots on goal, didn't quite work out, and but my biggest ever win actually is in Showdown, so I'll be attacking it tonight.
Awesome. Do well. Good luck.
All right. We'll see you.